We're going to create some deep ambient atmospheric pads in Ableton using just stock devices that sound a bit like this. Preset there called Vortex Pad. I'll just play some of the others that I've been creating recently. This one's called Time Zone. Oh, we'll just scroll along to some more here. How about this one? Deep Tape. Quite a quick attack on that one, you know. I've macro controlled all of these. I'll be sharing them on our Patreon, so you can adjust them as you like. Autumn Bed. It's a really quite a deep one there. Holy Voices. I really could get lost just listening to these. Essentially, we're going to follow a two-part process here, and it would be a good point to credit two creators whose content has really inspired this video, and that would be Thought Forms and Grooving in G, and I will link below to the videos in particular that helped me put this together. We're going to create an instrument rack with Wavetable, Collision, and two samplers with some Foley and some noise. We're going to rack things up and create some macro controls and take advantage of Ableton's Randomise feature in the instrument rack to create almost a pad generator. I want to just be able to print kind of single notes. It was watching George's videos about kind of creating layered pads that made me think, I'd love to see if I could come up with a generative approach for that in Ableton so I could just print these notes. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. I'm going to build everything around Wavetable. I think that's the kind of best instrument or the best synth that Ableton has for doing this kind of thing. It's just got so much flexibility in terms of the sounds it can produce. So we're going to take advantage mainly of the modulation matrix in Wavetable along with the Unison modes, which are really powerful, and just changing those alone can give you a huge variety of timbres. I've actually created a few prototypes of this device here, the 90s ambient jungle pad generator, but I actually think this probably goes a bit beyond that. It's not just all of these pads would work really well in jungle or drum and bass, but I think potentially they're also just really nice evolving ambient soundscapes that you can create pretty quickly once you get into the flow of it. So I'm going to kind of follow along on the jungle pad generator 2 and use similar controls for this. So you can see here essentially we've got 4 layers: a pad layer, a chime layer, a Foley layer, and a noise layer. We've also got our various controls mapped here. These are largely for Wavetable and some for Collision. So we'll be referring back to that because I can't actually remember what I did. Okay, first of all, we're just going to group this and we'll start mapping these controls here. And I'll explain a bit about why I'm doing what I'm doing, but I'm going to map time and amount to macro 1 and 2. Now, time is how much the time that an envelope or an LFO takes to happen. At minus 100%, it's, I guess, 100% quicker. At 100%, it's 100% faster. At 0, it's just as it is set in Wavetable's amplitude envelopes and LFOs, as you see it, if you like. So we'll map those there. Now, in this previous example, the one that I made earlier, I actually used an auto filter as kind of an additional filter in addition to the ones that Wavetable has built in. So let's just follow that approach here because it's been getting me some really good results. So we're going to just pull in auto filter there. I'm going to map the frequency to macro 3 and I'm going to map the resonance to macro 4, as well as the LFO amount to macro 5 and the rate to macro 6. We'll just check back what I've done here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to take advantage of all 16 macro knobs here. So we're now going to map Wavetable's position to macro 7. We'll do oscillator 2 to macro 8. You could be saying, well, why are you doing that when you're talking about having a modulation matrix here where you can modulate all of these things? It's really to randomize only works for controls that you've mapped in the macro. The more controls you have mapped here, the more you can take advantage of the randomization feature. And I want to be able to randomize the oscillator positions. Sadly, you can't map unison mode. You can map voices and amount, but really that's no good to us because I want to be able to change the unison mode. I also want to be able to change the wavetable selection here, but again, you can't map that. So we'll have to dive in to map that stuff here. I'm just going to check what else I've got set up in the OG one. Okay, the sub is on. We'll put that on as well, just as an additional kind of oscillator. It looks like I've just got it set as 0. I am going to turn wavetable effects on. We're going to use modern for both oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. And I'm just going to set the warp at something like 25 and the fold at 10, and maybe I'll do 10 and 30, just kind of randomly picking stuff here. Okay, that's looking good. So the reason I've done that is because warp and fold, neither of them seem to be modulated from 0 in the modulation matrix, and I want to be able to mess with the warp and the fold. It's almost like an FM sound essentially. I'm going to change the polyphony. Well, the polyphony's already maxed out 8, so we'll just leave that as it is. We'll leave the volume as it is. Let's just check what I've mapped in the previous one. Again, you can see me making this in real time in the live stream, which I'll link to below. I've got a chord and a scale here. Maybe we'll just pull that in for now because I can show you what my thinking was with having that there. Looks like I've just got a major 7th mapped here. So 4th, 7th, 11th, 12th. Just a major 7th chord. I'm also going to pull in a scale. I have my scale set default to C minor. We'll leave that there for now. I've got controls being mapped here for the resonator, which we'll come on to. So I'm going to map the scale to oscillator, not to oscillator position 1, but to macro 11. And we'll just call this minor key. Yeah, I'm just going to dive into macro mapping and set. I don't think you can turn this off or on. That's fine. We might just have to dive in. Can you map this to a macro? You can. We map it to that. Will that work? You see if that works? We can sort this out. Okay, device on. Can never remember how to do this. We'll figure it out. So when it's down, it's okay. We want that in reverse. When it's down, it's off. So we want that 1. Well, I don't think this will work. Let's see. Yeah, great. Okay. So if we want it at C, we just have to. Great. It's cool. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay. So now if I just play a single note in here, I'll just switch back to my key cam. Okay, thank goodness we've got a limiter on there. It's very loud because it is just these two wavetables as they are going through this amplitude envelope, which you can see here like this. I'm just going to change some stuff here now in the modulation matrix as well as in the unison mode. Maybe we'll pull the volume down too so we can hear. Okay, great. Let's pull the release up in the amplitude envelope to about 7 seconds or something like that. Let's make the attack like 3 seconds, 2.9. Let's put unison mode on. Already, that's pretty paddy to my ears. I might put the voices up to 4 and just bump the amount in unison. Maybe that's a bit much. Like 35 or something. I might just leave it as it was. Oh, we've also got the I'm controlling the frequency there, and we have these additional filters here. We're going to use those in the modulation matrix in a second. I think at this point I'm actually going to add in my reverb. I am going to use hybrid reverb. Why am I using hybrid reverb? Because it's got this lovely algorithmic shimmer verb, which I'm going to have set at 12 semitones above. So we'll get this lovely sparkly top part. That addition of that sparkly part came about after speaking to Groovin and G on the phone. He was talking about how he was getting kind of obsessed about building pads. He was talking about this shimmer layer, and I was immediately like, that hybrid reverb would work really well. I'm just going to leave that as it is. Okay, this simple is good. We kind of want to keep it nice and clean and tight. It's good for processing. I also think it's good for creative thinking as well. Okay, let's start to modulate some stuff in the modulation matrix. So you can actually modulate. Is this unison amount if we do this? That is pretty cool. I didn't actually know you could do that. So if you can modulate something, it will appear in the modulation matrix when you click on it. So you can modulate amount. I like that. Why don't we do that? Let's do something that's nice. Maybe if we set this to like 40% and we made the LFO quite slow. This is where mapping the time and global mod in our instrument rack is going to come into play, because we can change how quickly these LFOs are working. I'll show you. You can hear it going faster there because of the time. And there it is slow. Okay, great. That's working well. Let's put that down to like 0.10 or something. I'd just go by ear here. It's going to be different every time. Just try different pad generators, create new pad producing instrument racks, and try different effects, try different approaches. Perhaps we can use the LFO2 to modulate the rate of LFO1. That's going to give us some interesting wibbles maybe. So LFO rate, we'll go into LFO2, rate, click on rate, and now we use that to modulate LFO. Hear that? Actually use it to like self-modulate. Maybe if we make this -25. There you go, you can see it doing stuff there. I might make it a bit slower. Maybe we could take that amount and we can map that to, maybe do this to an envelope or something like that, yeah, so that 50. Because I might use this, the frequency on this envelope as well, set that to 50. Pull this one down, let's get a bit of a filter sweep up going on, yeah? Okay, so we want it pulling up. Yeah, exactly. So because we're going to have a long evolving sounds here, I'm actually going to take advantage of the envelope looping, which will loop the envelope back on itself, almost like an LFO, when it reaches the end of the decay stage. We'll see it do its thing in a second. There we go. Lovely. Let's do another filter here, the second part. We're going to set this to split. Or is it parallel? What we do want to do is turn the frequency. So let's map the frequency of, maybe we'll put this to envelope 2. I never like to do them quite full because it's just a bit too much full in terms of how much the number that I put in here. Maybe we have this one going like down. Yeah, nice. Almost like a phaser. Right, we'll have that. Let's turn loop on, turn the release up so it doesn't just ping. When we let go, it doesn't just ping away. Okay, let's modulate the warp and the fold as well on the oscillator wavetables. So we'll do those, warp and fold. Yeah, we'll do those in the LFO. So just, it could be anything, 25, maybe position. So warp, we'll put that on 30. Maybe we'll just randomly fill stuff in here. Bit too much, maybe make it like 5. Do the same in this one here. Literally just eyeballing things. 5. Again, you can take it like the time or hear the time slowing everything right down. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. You know, if you change the unison at this point, you're going to hear. It's almost like a phaser. Let's also just modulate the oscillator position. Maybe we'll do that with an envelope, shall we? 1. Let's also do it to an LFO like 10. I mean, you've got a kind of pad generator there already. I can just show you what the randomization in the rack will do. So we'll exclude the key macro from randomization. Okay, so now we can randomize the rest of it. And you can see the LFO amounts up here. Lush. Okay, it's modulating quite a lot, which is the time. Actually, sorry, probably the LFO. Let's just make the LFO phase of 180 so it's going around our head. I think that's enough now for the wavetable layer. You could kind of save that at that point and you've got something really good to go. I'm going to have to refer back to the instrument rack I've made here for this one. Essentially, and maybe it's best if I just talk through it and then I might copy this over and you can watch the live stream for more detail about how I've made this. But we have a collision layer going on here. We also have some kind of scale randomization stuff going from arpeggiator. I'm also taking advantage of expression control here. This is modulating a grain delay later on. There's a couple of grain delays and there's also an echo. I wanted to create a kind of sparkly layer, the type of ear candy you might hear like floating around you on some of those 90s wavetable synthesizers like the D50. That wasn't technically wavetable synthesis, but like the Roland D50 or the Korg Wave Station. These kind of sparkly percussive sounds that happen every now and again. Hence running them into auto pans and into grain delays for these kind of textural bits happening around your ears, as well as an echo. Collision is at the heart of it because it's great at creating percussive sounds. I've mapped the resonant material and the noise attack. I'm just going to copy this patch over or this chain over. It's going to take me hours to create that here. Okay, so we've got the collision layer. I'm going to map the volumes now of the lanes. Is that what they're called? Lanes? Is it just racks? Instrument lanes? Chains of the chains. I'm going to map the volume of the chains to these last macros here, and we'll call this pad dB. I like using dB. Collision. We'll call this perk dB. Just because it's kind of percussive textures. And then these ones I'm going to have Foley and I'm going to have noise. Again, we'll come on to those. We'll create one of those instances and then I'll probably should guide you through the noise layer. I am at this point just going to map the scale in the collision chain to our minor key. So we can change that and I'll show you why that is. We kind of want this chord. Let's copy the chord over to here as well. I think the chord would be best at this point. Let's give this a listen now. I'm going to turn the perk layer down a bit. In fact, before we do that, we're going to map the resonant material. We can do that here. We're going to map that to macro 9, res type, great. And we're going to map let's just go back to what we're going to map here. The noise attack. When I'm creating these racks, I'm looking for the kind of bang. I'm looking for bang for my buck. You know, if I'm going to map something to one of 16 macros and you've got all these controls, it's got to work hard. You know, it can't be something that's kind of inconsequential. So I'll map that to macro 10. I will just leave those as they are. So you hear these Let me just turn this chord off. I'm just having the chord on really to demonstrate it. You could create some chord racking with some chord variations. I won't do that in this video. That'd be a way to take this further. Let's have a listen to the noise. So I'm using auto pan as a bit of a tremolo here to kind of fade things in and out, and then we've got all of these grain delays and echoes. Things being driven by an arpeggiator where the rate is being modulated by an LFO. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, next we are going to create a Foley layer, and I have done this in Sampler in the original one, or in my version I made earlier. So I think just for time we will copy what we've got here because the chain is quite simple. It's a sampler loaded with Foley. So there are loads of good places on the internet where you can get Foley. There's also a sample channel on my Discord where people have posted various places to get free found sound. There'll be a link below where you can join that. I'll also link to the found sounds in particular for this in the video description. But I have got all of these sounds loaded into a sampler. There's 41 kind of found sounds here just loaded in. I'm taking advantage of the chain selector, having these distributed equally across the chain region. In fact, I think it is probably just simpler if I show you how to do it. So we're just pulling a sampler. Okay, we're going to load it in our sounds first of all. I've actually got a field ambience Foley favorites or collections. Let's go with these free field recordings. Let's just pull in some ones we like the look of. So maybe you and you. Contact mics on windmill shell, windmill metal stairs, iPhone matrix. So now I'm going to go to this button here to the selector region, and we're just going to highlight all of them and distribute ranges equally. I'm going to set the sustain mode to just be forward and backward. Let's map the volume to our Foley control here. Now we're going to jump into the modulation section, and we're going to use sample offset or sample selector, and we're going to turn the amount up to 100 and make the type, the waveform type here, a noise. I'm going to make this, or a sample and hold, we're going to make the frequency really low, retrigger on, so it's going to be different every time, essentially giving us a different sample without having to map any additional controls. So let's hear that now. Excellent. Great. That's exactly what we want. So I have put some sort of reverb on the previous version here. Let's just check the model that I've used. We can just copy this one. It's essentially a reverb. I've used the filter here, and that's probably because there are some really quite low resonance sounds in this. So I've probably got an LFO set up with it on. Let's go back to, okay, sample selector. I've got panorama on. I've got some filter frequency stuff. Some quite mad modulation there. I'll save this all up in the Patreon pack anyway. Let's go with panorama. This could be cool. In fact, I don't want to do that actually. I'm gonna just go with what. Let's hear this going around our heads. Nice. Okay, let's use filter too. Bits fast. Maybe we can change the rate of LFO1, do sample and hold, frequency, retrigger on. All of this is going to add into the generative randomizing nature of doing it this way. So this At this point, I'm just going to exclude these from randomization. Exclude from randomization. Right. Okay, we've got a final noise layer which I've created in a very similar way using some Music Radar magazine synth noises. I'm just going to copy that over just so this video isn't the longest video ever. And we will right click and map the final control here. Again, you can see me doing this in full on my live stream. Cool. I just want to check if this scale is going to go off. Right, so that should be off at 0. Or maybe we can just call this like. If I don't want to do that, I want to leave that clear for now. We've only got the chord device here. Let's turn it off now. So every time I play a note, I'm going to get kind of different found sound going on. There's also lots of randomization set up within Collision. It's got quite an extensive MIDI section. You can affect it's actually in the resonator itself, you can kind of affect the randomness. Got kind of randomness built into it. Great, okay, and we'll just exclude that from randomization as well. Okay, cool. Now if I hit randomize, we'll hopefully hear what's happening. It's really going to work best with or only be noticeable with Wavetable and Collision. You have to be careful sometimes, the frequency isn't just down. Pretty good. All right, let's go and let's just change wavetables. The wavetables we're dealing with. Excellent. So I'm going to save this as AW deep pad generator. We could collapse this down, save it. But now we're going to go a step further and we're going to resample these sounds, and we're going to follow along with the Thought Forms video where he shows or explains the 90s technique of just sampling a single note, and this works really well with this kind of generative approach. So resampling, just make sure the audio is set correctly. Turn record on. I'm going to use quite a high note. I really think we probably want C5. So you can hear we're getting different found sound every time. Quite love texture as well. You know, you might want to mess with the volume of things. Or you could even map LFOs to this, you know. Okay, so now let's just resample that. I'm going to record stuff while this is happening. Yeah, cool. I'll just stop it there. Okay, let's just hit randomize and record something else as well. Let's hit it twice. In fact, before we do that, let's delete that. Let's just change our wavetables, and we'll change our unison mode too. Let's put it in shimmer. In fact, let's put it in position spread. We'll change the oscillator wavetables just to anything. See what these give us. Hit randomize again. Go. So don't worry too much if it does something you don't like at the beginning, because we're going to be chucking this in a sampler and using the sample offset to kind of mitigate that. Very nice. Okay, now I'm going to just pull in the sound we've created here into a blank MIDI channel, right click, normalize volumes, and we'll go simpler to sampler. I'm going to group this. I'm going to do some further racking in here. I'm going to map some controls for this one first. Let's map our frequency to macro 1 and a resonance to macro 2. I'm also just going to keep it really simple for now. Map the attack to macro 4 and the release to macro 5. We're going to change the polyphony to be 12, and we're going to turn retrigger off. We're going to go into sample. We make sure we got it forward and back so that when it gets to the end of the sample, it's going to scan back through. And we're also going to map the volume to macro 8. Okay, so we know that we've put a C5 in here, and the root is set to C3. So if I play this, it's very high. So with the root here, if I put this at 0, you see it's C minus 2, and it goes up in steps of 12. So 12, C1, 24, C0, 36, C1, 48, C2, and so on. You can just go up in steps of 12 for the C value. So 60 for C3, 72 for C4. We've sampled to C5, so we want this 84. Great. A lot lower. Everything's starting back from the beginning, as you'll hear. I actually want it. I want the attack on macro 3, and I want the release on macro 4. Great. So we want a high release, like 15 seconds. We want a high attack, like 3 seconds or something. We're also going to jump into the modulation matrix, use LFO2 on, and we're going to modulate the sample offset. We're going to do the same thing with the sample and hold. Very low frequency. You see it's playing back from different stuff every time. So we've got kind of a mid-range sound there, really. So we'll call this mid. Let's duplicate this a couple of times, and we'll go for a higher sound and for a much lower sound. You don't have to do this, but in this higher one, we could either just bump it up an octave, or we could change the root note here. And in the lower one, we're going to do the same thing, and we'll just bump down. Maybe in this high one, we could actually make it twice as high. I suppose it right up and reverse the sample. Now, this is frustratingly always plays back from the end. I might take the high, turn the filter mapping off for the very high one. Just adjust volumes of these chains. Make the high a bit quieter and the lower a bit quieter as well. You can even do things at this point, like we could we'll add in a hybrid reverb, echo streets. Let's set it to like 55, and I'm doing that on the high layer here. That sample offset, every time we play a note, we're going to get a different thing happening. Okay, let's try and create another one because I'm not particularly sold on that. Let's try with the first sound we made. So rather than having to go through creating that all again, I'll just duplicate what we've made. We'll just drag in this first. I think this is always the gamble with generative stuff. Is like sometimes you can get some really lovely results and sometimes not so much. And that is just the nature of the beast. Right, so we'll have to just tweak a few more things here in the one that we'll have to turn sustain mode on, and we're going to have to change the root note. So one handy thing here is I sometimes like write them in. I think mid 72. No, when you're just creating more presets like this, you can just use this template. So let's just check, was that 72? No, it wasn't, it was 84. Mid 48? Okay, we'll just leave it like that. Maybe if we turn the transpose off, low will do the same. I mean, really, you could just leave it as the root there and just work around it. Okay, we're already, this could be better. Want this lower, yeah? Oh, yeah. How are you feeling about that? Let's just check we've got the, I think I got overexcited there, and just check we've got everything sampled as it should be. We can even do stuff like with additional modulation in sampler. And in fact, this is one thing I want to do with this. Let's turn the panorama up to 15, maybe the filter up like that, and just make this really slow. I'm going to turn reverse off because reverse should work. Nice. Oh, we can also add some, should we add some panorama in on this mid one too? Just 25, make it quite low. So yeah, definitely have fun with each of the layers as you... Cross modulation here. That's it. That's what we're talking about, yeah. Just want the lower to kind of like support. Yeah, so that is how I've been going about making all of these kind of deep ambient multi-layered pads, creating this rack, creating this kind of deep pad rack, deep pad generator, and just having fun messing around with the controls inside it before I resample the notes. And yeah, I've been getting some absolutely lovely results. You know, you could add additional effects after this, get creative. I just love all this stuff that comes in. Obviously you can hear the Foley's quite loud there, so you might just want to experiment with the volumes of this stuff. And I find it's actually really fun to kind of just mess around with the volumes in the pad generator as you're resampling these notes. But yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up there. I hope that has been fun and informative and has given you some ideas and has taken the original creators that I credited, their ideas and their vision further. All of this stuff will be posted on Patreon. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you around. Cheers.